Hello everyone, welcome to the Kevin Lee Social. Thank you for tuning in. What initially began as an 8-part series interviewing entrepreneurs to share and inspire how they've successfully pivoted during COVID-19, I have decided not only to continue this series, but also to expand on the scope to understand and learn about people's craft, philosophy, the challenges they face in the industry, and their favorite failures that have helped shape them to become who they are today. By going deeper and understanding different thought leaders, businesses, and industries, the idea is to help cross-pollinate ideas applicable in your life and inspire action in this new norm we live in. I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you. Before we get on with the show, today's podcast is sponsored by Altitude Tea. Altitude Tea specializes in rare and exotic teas you can't find on supermarket shelves. Teas grown on high altitudes are more nutrient-dense due to the cold nights and misty peaks that slows the growth of the tea plant, leading to a higher concentration of aromatic oils and richer flavors. They are located in Waterloo and they do private tea ceremonies where you can learn how to drink tea mindfully using a traditional gongfu set and have over 20 varieties of tea to choose from. For our listeners, you can use the code BEYOND at checkout for 15% off. Today we have Dr. Cody Rall. He is an ABPN board-certified Navy-trained psychiatrist and a founding partner and former media director for Stanford Brainstorm. Dr. Rall completed his obligation to the US Navy in July 2021 and is now pursuing the use of brain-computer interface technologies for mental health. He is the founder of Techforpsych, a media and relations company that covers advancements in technology related to neuroscience and mental health treatment. He was also a former board member of the American Psychiatric Association's annual Psychiatry Innovations Lab. Everyone, please help me welcome Dr. Cody Rall. Hi, Dr. Cody Rall. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Kevin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cody, for jumping on. I have been a big fan of your YouTube channel over the last 3 years. I've been following your work closely. I've been following all the devices and what you do. It's blowing my mind literally every time I watch your new videos. I'm so excited to have you share more about yourself. Let's begin with sharing with the audience your interest and passion for technology and behavioral healthcare. How did that all come about?
Yeah, I was in medical school and trying to figure out what path I wanted to go. And the brain just seemed like the most interesting organ in the entire human body. And originally I wanted to go into surgery, but obviously there's some really interesting things you can do with surgery, but at the same time, I've become a general surgeon, bless their souls with what they do, but I didn't really feel like ripping gallbladders out of people all day. So I was between neurology and psychiatry for some time and had become really interested in the brain and cognition and behavior and mood, those kind of nuanced brain functions that are very difficult to pin down as far as science and medicine goes. I think the only way to really make progress in that, rather than just conjecture like we've done for the last 100 years, is to get data on it. And started talking about on YouTube. New companies were coming up with devices that were able to track EEG brain data, blood flow data, and even some new modalities that are coming down the pipeline here. There's just endless content to talk about on YouTube. I don't have any trouble coming up with ideas. In fact, it's more difficult to narrow down what to make a video on just because there's so much going on. So that's really what I've been doing for the last 5+, going on almost 8-10 years now, of just exploring what's happening in the brain-computer interface niche.
With all of this, especially with your videos on YouTube in the past 5 years that I've seen, they highly target that whole brain-computer interface niche in terms of cognitive performance or behavioral healthcare, meditation are some of the topics that I continually watch. Can you share about what your offerings are about and why are they so popular? Like, for example, brain circuit training is something that pops up a lot in your videos.
Yeah, the brain circuit training program uses the Muse headband with software called MindLift. That is a company that reverse engineered what Muse headband was able to do. They work closely with Interaxon, the company that produces the Muse headband, and they're actually able to provide tools that mental health providers can use to target different brain waves and use neurofeedback to help improve people's cognition, whether that's focus, relaxation, or any of those other facets that come into mental performance. The brain circuit training program is an evolution out of that. I started working with people one-on-one to do neurofeedback training. And that evolved into a group setting, which is really fun. We meet every 2 weeks and I give everybody homework that they do for those 2 weeks to make sure that they're reaching their neurofeedback goals. And there's an online video course that goes along with that, suggests some different meditation techniques to use with the technology, but also emphasizes the fact that a lot of that is subconscious operant conditioning learning that happens in the brain when you do neurofeedback exercises. So you'll have to put in the effort and be patient, but we definitely get some nice results out of it. And it's been really fun to interact with people that have been watching me on YouTube for a number of years, have had a Muse headband and haven't really found a way to. I think the regular Muse app is great and there's a lot to explore there, but normally my clients are looking to take things to a next level. And I think that's what my program provides. And it's a continually evolving thing. I don't even know if will always stay with the Muse headband. There's some other hardware out there that's coming out that is mobile and at a low enough cost to where people can realistically purchase them and use them at home. And that's really what I'm going for, is people to be able to use the devices at home in the comfort of their own home at a reasonable price, and to be able to make improvements in their mental health, but also brain performance through programs like mine. It's been a lot of fun.
I do have a Muse band at home myself, and I've been playing around with it, and I think it's quite a fun device to play with. And as you said, the initial app is great for some basic feedback, but as you get along, you want, there's so much more I think I could do with this. What can I do? And I'm curious to hear with your clients, what are the most common reasons why they come to you for your work? Or what do they want to get out of the program generally? Is it cognitive performance or is it something else generally?
Yeah, a lot of them are looking to improve their meditation experience, have tried meditation for a number of years and have reached a plateau in their practice where either they're not able to find enough benefit in it to feel like they want to sit down and do a session every day, or they've been meditating for a long time and are looking for deeper experiences. That is, I would say, about 70% of clients. But then I have a number of people from different backgrounds that are looking from everything from improving their golf game to improving focus at work to also improving mood and lessening anxiety as well. So I get a pretty wide range of people that are interested in learning more about the technology and learning protocols and techniques to get better at using the technology to improve their own lives.
I love the idea of using a device that's so accessible to be able to improve those parts of your life. I think it's an amazing time that we live in, the technology that's available. And to speak to some other points that you were mentioning, I understand when you say like a one-on-one session, because then, they would put on the Muse band, it would go through the software and then you'd receive the data and you can give them feedback and so on. But in a group setting, what would that look like? I can understand it'd be fun with everyone, but how would you be able to read all this data, or what would it look like?
Yeah, good question. So traditionally, neurofeedback in a therapeutic sense, if you're using it in the clinic to treat anxiety or depression, that type of thing, you would want to do a full-on quantitative EEG and then take those, what they call Z-scores, represent brain function at different areas of a scalp map, and train those back to 0, as what they would say. And 0 is a loose term. It's based on population data. So you'd look at a population and say, okay, what's the normal level that either alpha or beta frequencies should be at, and then train people back to that center point. And I do that a bit, but I've designed the program more on a performance enhancement aspect. So I do screen clients that are applying for the program. And if they are saying that they've got some pretty serious mental health issues, traumatic brain injury, that type of thing, I'm more than happy to help those types of clients, but I want to make sure that they're relatively stable before coming onto my program, because it's not designed for that one-on-one, really intimate fixing of major mental health issues type of program. So I normally recommend that they go seek more mainstream mental health care, or even a neurofeedback provider that would be able to provide that more one-on-one close care. My program is designed more towards performance enhancement, where we have different settings that people go through. I call them completely energized, powerful focus, unwavering, calm, and profound and infinite. And those have different neurofeedback settings. And what I find is that you can learn a lot about someone's brain by having them go through almost like a neurofeedback stress test. So like with performance enhancement with completely energized, it's targeting mid-range beta in the dominant frontal lobe. So I make sure I know which lobe is dominant in a person, whether that's right or left, depending on what they write with handedness. And then we go into the training and I can see based on their data, how well they're able to enhance mid-range beta while simultaneously lowering low theta and high beta, which are representative of high beta would be more of a distraction, whereas theta would be more of like drowsiness. And it's not that simple. We're still working out the tweaks, but that's the best that we can communicate in the neurofeedback community of what's going on with these brainwaves. But in going through the training every 2 weeks, I can see how their brain has reacted to the program, to that protocol, and give them tips to improve from there. And what that structure looks like is there's five calls throughout the 2 months. We do an initial call where it's introductions and we all get to know each other a little bit. And then I give everybody their homework. So there's a different setting on each one of those weeks. And then they do their 2 weeks of training. And then I review each client's brainwave data on my own time, create a feedback video for them, send them that video. And then there's a little bit of back and forth one-on-one about what that data means and what they should do for their specific training protocol moving forward. And then we all meet as a group and discuss results and how different people felt subjectively during the neurofeedback training, but also what they learned from the feedback that they underwent during the stress test. There's also a pretty in-depth analysis that happens at the beginning of the program. So I do quantitative EEG. That's been a capability that's recently come online from MindLift, and surveys. So I'm able to get a good amount of information. And the program is fluid too. If someone's going through one of the training protocols and says, hey, my mood hasn't been good, or I've been more anxious, or I haven't been sleeping as well at night, by doing those predetermined protocols, then I'll customize from there and say, hey, you should probably just do the unwavering calm exercise instead of completely energized because you told me you had anxiety and weren't sleeping as well. Maybe mid-range beta is throwing you off balance and we should just have you focus on that one protocol. Generally, the clients that I work with are, like I said, looking for more performance enhancement, and they can handle each one of the frequency settings okay for at least 2 weeks and give me feedback on how they felt during those 2 weeks. And then I think it's really cool because by the end of the program, we can see for each client which protocol has worked best for them and what brain changes have come out of that. And then I'm able to offer continued about 3 months of training after even the video calls are done, to where they have continued access to MindLift so that they can continue doing the protocols that worked best for them and have a game plan for moving forward for their continued neurofeedback training.
Great. I love all the details. Thank you so much for sharing that, Cody. It's a great insight into what your program's about and the structure and how it works, so the audience can have a bit of a taste of it. And to go to in a little bit more detail with this program, so the audience kind of understands, what kind of particular wearables are you currently focusing on and why, as well as the platform that you're using?
Yeah, another great question. So many people have the Muse headbands. So that's what we've been using. And I think it does give good data for some of the slower brainwave frequencies like alpha and theta. But I think where the Muse headband lacks is when you get into the higher frequency, lower amplitude brainwaves, to include mid-range to high beta and then up into the gamma range, is difficult to detect with that headband. So it definitely comes with its own unique challenges in using it. The program works well because people already have the Muse headband and are looking for advanced techniques. But as the hardware evolves and either the Muse headband gets better, or I've had my eye on using the Neurosity crown with a new neurofeedback software that's come out called Divergence, I'd love to use that more with clients. There's just some logistical challenges with that. It's quite a bit more expensive headband, up $800-900 just for the hardware compared to the Muse headband, which is, you can get a Muse 2, I think, for $300 these days. There are some logistical challenges, and I'm trying to feel that out. Do I rent out Neurosity Crown to people to use with the Divergence platform, or do I wait for Muse headband to get better? I toyed around with the idea of having an alumni program, because a lot of people that had done the brain circuit training program course using Muse and MindLift wanted to continue training with me, but even take it to another level where we're able to take a closer look at gamma brainwaves, which are pretty popular these days when you take a look at advanced meditative states, which I think the Neurosity Crown could track quite a bit better. It tends to have lower signal to noise ratio and better detect those higher brainwave frequencies. It's just figuring out the logistics of how to design a whole alumni program and then have that available to my clients as well. I'm still perfecting the brain circuit training program, so I don't want to spread myself too thin, but it's definitely something that I would love to do in the near future, and I'm preparing to do pretty soon as the YouTube channel grows and I'm able to get more help in what I'm doing so that I can bring more value to people that want to interact with me off of YouTube.
I understand where your thoughts and where you wanted to go with this, because as I was exploring the Muse headband and the different platforms, I also came across your videos of the Neurosity Crown, and then the interviews with Alex. And I also had purchased a Neurosity Crown for experimentation, and it's a really cool looking device. It looks like Xavier from X-Men or something like that.
Yeah, and some of the more recent videos that I've been doing too, more experimental videos, taking a look at different things like either alpha activation in the occipital lobe, but even like midline theta activation with focus in the frontal lobe. The data coming out of the Neurosity Crown has just been better. It's just been more reliable. I still think that the Muse headband is definitely valuable data to use for neurofeedback. And I don't want to discourage people from getting the Muse headband. I think it can bring a lot of value, but definitely, like I said, getting to those more nuanced brainwave states to include gamma and some of those other ones, Neurosity Crown, I think is representative of where the stuff is going in the near future.
Do you know if Neurosity Crown or Divergent platform has started their rental program yet for the device?
I have not had any updates, and they're trying to figure things out along with the rest of us. What does a rental program look like? So I don't believe that they are renting out Neurosity Crowns yet. I could be wrong, but I haven't heard any updates from Alex Castillo or the crew yet.
Yeah, I can understand, because it is, like you said, the logistic problems of clients acquiring a Neurosity Crown is quite challenging at the moment, both on
and I think
side
that for like a rent. Yeah, I think for a rental program, you have to have a pretty robust customer service department in a company. And I think that the company is just not big enough yet. I think that this will happen in the near future, but this whole field is still new, that not all the options are going to be there just yet.
All right, so switching gears a bit. So you've started a YouTube channel 5+ years later, over 1 million views. Now you've got clients all over the place. Where do you think it all took off for you? Was there a particular pivotal moment in the Techforpsych journey?
Yeah, looking back, it's funny. When I first started the channel, I was just throwing videos at the wall, really just talking about evolution, even like stem cells, any scientific concept that I found interesting. And some of the first videos that did really well is where I was actually explaining how some of these, I used to call them personal EEG devices. I don't use that term as much as I used to, but that seemed to really help people understand what was happening in the space. And then also I did some brain mapping videos where I took some of the data and attempted to use MATLAB to really look at the data and analyze it. And that video did really well as well. So I think that I started to zero in on, I think YouTube's all about building a connection with your audience. And where neuroscience, I think, has been lacking before is you are excited about neuroscience, and then you take the audience to a clinic or a lab, and then you show them, here's the functional MRI machine, here's the magnetic encephalography machine. They're so cool, aren't they? Imagine what we could do with this technology. But an everyday person just is not going to get that excited about that, because unless they've had a head injury, they're probably never going to interact with an MRI machine. But where things started to change and gain traction is realizing that now we have these neuroscience devices that a person at home can hold in their hands and really get excited about neuroscience and using that technology to improve their mental function. And then now we have a two-way conversation. Now I can start offering tips and advice and things that I've learned from the mental health field and things that I've learned from talking to all these different companies and people that have designed the hardware and the software, and parlaying that data to the average user, to the everyday user, to help them use the devices in a more strategic way. And that's the value exchange. And I think that once I realized that's where things really started to evolve on the YouTube channel. and in my coaching business.
It definitely was the hook for me when I was starting to make the connection between, okay, these devices, these style, but not too expensive. They were accessible. It's something that I could have in my own hands, and it's something that I could watch your videos and learn from, and then also use myself. So it's that learnability and being able to access. It was very relevant in my case.
Yeah, and I still struggle with it. I still want to go to Kernel and film with their Kernel Flow that costs $100,000 and put it on my head and say, "This is coming. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have these connectome data." It's like, here's Brian Johnson. He's been very public about his mental health issues. Here is before and after of him using ketamine, and here's the connectome map tracking those brain changes. Isn't that amazing? And I want to show that and share that. I think it is still an integral part of my YouTube channel because I want to form the overall picture of where the technology is at now and the practical benefits that the audience can use, but also where the technology is headed in the future to get people excited and engaged with it. But it is a struggle. It is a challenge to figure out what the right balance between futuristic predictions and technology that is still in the developmental stage that is very expensive versus the stuff that maybe is less powerful but more practical because of price and accessibility.
I think you're doing a great job in both because giving us a taster of the future with the kernel, for example, is great because you get, okay, that's the possibility. If it's 100 grand now, maybe in a few years it would drop down as the technology flows backwards, but you're still always giving tips and teaching us about the products that we have available right now as well. So it's a great medium. I think you're doing a great job balancing them both out.
Yeah. And I think that, again, going back to the audience, there's people at home that are using the devices for their own benefit, of course, but also I get a lot of people that are venture capitalists or scientists and just want to know what's happening in the field. And then that's information for them as well, because if you think about it, the more resources, awareness, and money that comes into the space, the quicker we're going to have these technologies at our fingertips, the more we can allow the general public to be cognizant of what's going on. Not only do you get money, but you also get talent of people that love the direction that the field is headed in and want to divert their efforts, their resources towards improving its technology. That's part of it too.
Dr. Cody, we're going to switch gears a little bit again. And I wanted to speak about the COVID pandemic, which is a big thing that spread across the world over the past 2 years, causing the lockdowns and impacting people's mental and physical health. I am curious to hear, how has that impacted your work in industry? What's happened since then or still going since then?
Yeah, I think it's been huge. I definitely noticed a lot of view increase on my YouTube channel during the lockdown. I think that's just because more people were spending time online, but also worried about their mental health and looking for ways to get through that difficult time period. And I think that we're still going through, that hasn't gone away. The virus is still around. Most people are vaccinated. People are less concerned about it, but at the same time, it did spark a revolution where, man, people just don't want to go into hospitals or clinics anymore. And I don't blame them. I don't really want to be there either. That's part of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Is I get to work from home. I get to help people in their own homes. I get to utilize communications technologies to really take humanity to a different stage that we haven't been before, which is having resources at home that we can use to improve our own health rather than having to go to the institutions that have the technology, not barring us from using the technology, but the technology is so expensive that they have to charge a premium price for you to use it. I think it's all about democratization, and it has really accelerated that. Video chat, having wearable technologies that you can use at home, and also cloud platforms that allow that data to be uploaded and have your provider look at it from a remote place is all very powerful. So the pandemic, I think, has really accelerated all that. And I think it added to something that was already happening, but accelerated it.
I do agree. I think with the convergence of the technology and the communication platforms, it worked perfectly for that period. Like the MindLift platform, the Divergence platform, where all the information is cloud-based, the data of the clients are all uploaded, and you can do that digital, essentially telehealth from the seat of your home. And it is a tough time for a lot of people. I mean, it isn't over. There are still lockdowns happening around the world. And it was especially tough when the lockdowns were quite serious before, being locked in four walls and not really being able to move and communicate or see your loved ones and so on. It takes a big toll on your mental health. And so being able to access videos like the ones that you've created and understanding that there is another way to work on your anxiety or work on this mental health issue that you may be having, like a bit of depression or something like that, they can connect with you and to see a solution of, right, there's actually things I can do. There's actually devices that can measure my baseline or where I'm at, and you can help coach me through this process over a 5-week program or something like that. And it's a beautiful thing, I think, and I can't wait to see what else you come out with and how that program develops over time.
Yeah, I use neurofeedback on myself to get through some difficult times through the pandemic. I had a friend die, not of COVID. He actually drowned in a lake at his home, and that was very difficult. We couldn't go to the funeral or grieve properly, and I buried it and tried to move on, but then it manifested as some pretty serious anxiety, especially as I was getting out of the military. And I was using neurofeedback every day to further that connection between my frontal lobe and the rest of my default mode network or autonomic nervous system that was going haywire for a little while, and calm that down. I'll have a video coming out very soon on that. So watch out for that one this weekend or next.
Great.
I'd rather not go too deep into that story today, but it's something that I think the audience might get some value out of here. And that'll be my next video. So I'll be curious to see what people think with that one.
Yeah, that'd be great. Definitely we'll be waiting to check that out. Sorry to hear. And it must have been so tough. I wanted to get your opinion on a few things. With the rapid advances in technology, what do you think about the future of this meditation / technology / behavioral health space? I'm curious to see your insight into the future in that space.
Yeah, there's a lot to dissect there. Of course, there's the near-term future and the far future. And I like to focus on the near term for the most part, because once you start talking 23 or 20, 30 years out, all bets are off. It's like, we have no idea what AI is going to do, if it's going to become sentient or I think more of it as what capabilities is it going to give us. Will AI be powerful enough just to take a look at electrical signals on the scalp and be able to find patterns despite the signal to noise ratio issues with that data? We'll be able to use that data to see what we're thinking, that type of thing. Brian Johnson and his team at Kernel were able to use magnetic encephalography, which tracks the magnetic waves coming out of the brain, to, with over 90% accuracy, determine what song a person was listening to out of a set of 10 by just looking at the magnetic signals from the brain. And not to go into too much detail, but traditional magnetic encephalography, you'd have to use an ironclad room to shield from the magnetic waves of the earth, of which there are quite a bit. And they would use like this super cooled coil that's very sensitive to magnetic waves from the brain. But there's a new technology coming on down the pipeline called OpMeg, which uses a laser and radioisotope to detect how minute magnetic waves from the brain are affecting the radioisotope, and as a result affecting the light that's shining through a gas chamber, and use that data to determine what the magnetic waves are doing. Again, technology that's very expensive and experimental, but you start to see where we're headed with that. It's, wow, you can actually determine what song someone's listening to. Or Mary Lou Jepsen, who's becoming quite famous in the space with open water, has talked about on TED Talks, where they're able to take fMRI data from the occipital lobe and know what, and reverse, take the data and figure out what videos people were watching. So your imagination just starts to run wild with this stuff. And I think that in the near term future, within the next 5 years, we're going to see more and more people using the EEG and FNIRS technologies to track focus. I think is probably going to be one of the biggest practical benefits. And if you look at how much Adderall or stimulants are prescribed in the world every day, it's pretty obvious that the general population wants improvements in their focus. So I think that's immediately an entry point into work performance that we're going to see really take shape over the next 5 years or so. I'd say two of the front runners in that space are Mendy and Focus Calm, are really headed in that direction and are already working with quite famous professional organizations to include the UFC, professional baseball teams, and race car drivers. You see the athletes where the mental function is so important. Like with the UFC, I think is such a great example where if you lose focus for a second, you are getting knocked out, and that could be the end of your career. If you're a race car driver, same thing. So these athletes, these professionals, they're willing to take the risk because the risk benefit ratio is actually very high for them. If they can improve their mental function by 0.1%, that could make all the difference in their careers and no side effects. So I think we're going to see more and more professional athletes using it. And as a result, it's going to, I think, filter down to early adopters that want to use it for either their own physical performance or performance at work. And then you start getting into using it for more complex mental function. And I think at that point, there might be a renaissance of using it for meditation. I think we're getting a little bit of a plateau here with the benefits of using neurofeedback with meditation. Maybe there'll be a breakthrough that I'm not aware of, but I think we're stuck at, okay, alpha is pretty good for tracking relaxation, and there's some other gamma wave stuff going on, and we can use that for protocols to help send people in the right direction for meditation, but more nuanced experiences that changes the protocol based on the brainwave data in real time. I think we'll see a renaissance of that a little bit further out than just the focus training. And then beyond, all bets are off.
Yeah.
So I think that those are some of the things we're going to see in the near term. And then the more sci-fi futuristic stuff, more like 10 years out from now, but super exciting. I think that the mental health field is a whole other ball game where you're using brain data to make certain diagnoses like depression, PTSD. We're headed in that direction, but I don't think we're quite there yet. People are making claims. It's really hard to tell. And the medical community moves pretty slow because if you talk to physicians, where's the randomized control data? Where's the meta-analysis studies? So those studies take years, decades to do. We'll see it implemented here and there, but I think it'll be where we'll see it in the mental health field and in medicine is more of augmentative treatment. So if someone's having a mental health crisis where they're suicidal, you probably want to give them ketamine instead of neurofeedback. That being said, neurofeedback very much training up to and after the intervention. And we're getting more and more psychedelic interventions here. People just last month on Capitol Hill, Dan Crenshaw from Texas, throwing his hands up and saying, we have the evidence. Psilocybin treatment saves lives. Why are we not making this available to veterans? There's going to be a big shift change there, but psychedelic medicines are very powerful, and it's something that needs to be done in a controlled setting. And the better prepared someone is through meditation and neurofeedback training, that type of work, and having good awareness, internal awareness of their internal state, prep someone for an experience like that. And then there's much better outcomes. So what we've actually seen is large investors that are investing in psychedelic treatments are actually scooping up brain computer interface technology companies because they're seeing the benefit of collecting brain data, prepping someone for a treatment, having them go through the treatment, and then having follow-up care there as well. So that's where brain computer interface information and technology is going to have a big impact in the next 5 years. And then after that, more diagnostic capabilities. But I think it's going to be assisting psychedelic interventions is where I see it going in the near future.
Thank you for the deep insight. It is a very exciting time to be alive. There's so much happening in, like you said, the psychedelic space and the prep and post, as well as all these athletes using products like the Mendy and the Focus Calm. And it's even the meditation communities scooping up these devices and having a play around and seeing, how can they improve their practice. There's lots to learn and to explore. And as you also mentioned, with the capabilities of AI and how they're using algorithms, and we don't even know where that's where that will go. I am looking forward to, because you're my go-to guy for the latest scoop. Every time there's something new, it's like, okay, Dr. Cody's got it now. I'll look on his channel. He's probably got the scoop on it. Or if he hasn't yet, he will be the next person to review it for us. So it's always good.
Well, I wish I could keep up because I know people have a lot of interest in like Neuralink, for instance, or Synchron just had their first patient where they inserted their brain-computer interface mesh monitoring hardware through capillaries, or not capillaries, arteries into the brain of the first US patient. They finally got FDA approval to do that. So I'd love to cover some more of the invasive BCI stuff as well. But again, it's like, how much does that benefit my audience if they're looking for more practical tools to use their EEG hardware at home? How does knowing about Synchron or Neuralink really benefit them? So I wish in a perfect world, I could do videos that are faster paced so I could cover all the cool stuff that's going on and make sure everything's up to date. But I'm actually realizing something right now. Maybe the way to do that is to do more podcasts with people such as yourself so that I could talk about it, because talking about it takes way less time than prepping a script, filming B-roll, filming the talking head portion, editing, posting, creating a thumbnail. All that takes a long time. There's definitely a lag between the news and the videos that I would like to improve. Maybe I should have a podcast, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Or you being on more podcasts and sharing that knowledge, because you absolutely you have great videos, and your editing skills and the way you splice things together, they're very entertaining. They're very engaging. It's very different from a dry, this is an unboxing of this and you always, it's very exciting, and you're always popping in different examples. So it's great. I love your videos, and they're good lengths and easy to digest.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And so anyone that comes across your work can see that your work's being shared everywhere with over 1 million views, as I mentioned before, and I look up to you in your work, in your field. And I wonder, do you have a favorite failure that has set you up for later success?
Favorite failure. There's so many video failures over the year, videos that I thought were going to do incredible and just did not, like complete duds. And then the weird thing about YouTube is that there's such a lag time there as well. It's like you put up a video, it does okay, and you forget about it. And then 6 months later, you're looking at the data for your channel and you're like, what the heck is going on here? This video blew up over the last 3 months. And then you do a deeper dive and try to understand what it is that it's resonating with the audience, and taking the data and learning from there about it's more than just trying to get more views or more subscriptions, because those data points indicate value. So my main goal is to make the most valuable videos for the audience where they feel like they're learning something and that it furthers the fields. When you ask about big failures, there's a lot of mini failures along the line. I'd say that one of the most frustrating experiences that I had within the last 4 years is that I wanted to do a congressionally funded study using the Muse headband in the Navy. I floated the idea. People at the hospital were very interested in it. This was at James Lovell in North Chicago. And Muse was on board. They sent me the headsets. I had the headsets. I had the program ready to go. I was collaborating with my med school, which was just next door by coincidence, Rosalind Franklin. We had a principal investigator that had done studies like that similarly in the past. We wrote the proposal, had it all packaged up and sent it off for a congressional grant, and it was not granted. They did not give us the money to do the study. And that was the end of it for me as far as military, because as you're probably aware, active duty members, and included in that is active duty military doctors, have to change sites every 2 to 4 years. And if you don't get a study started right when you hit the ground, boots on the ground at a new hospital site, like you've missed your opportunity. And I knew that I was going to be paying back my military obligation for the next 3 years until I was eligible to get out of the military, which is what I decided to do because of that experience and just being like, let's just say that not everybody believes in these devices as much as I do. And that becomes apparent when you go to some people are really excited about it, but others cross their arms. Where's the FDA approval? Where's the randomized controlled trials? And as much as I say, this stuff is super new, how on earth are we supposed to have that stuff already? This all has to start somewhere.
That's right.
Exploratory studies, even people using it at home. That's what's cool about the democratized information, is that we can collect data without approval of the big institutions and needing money to do that. Of course, we need money to do the larger studies, which are needed to solidify what we've learned from the exploratory studies. But long story short, not approved. And I'm thinking, why am I going to waste more time trying to work with the institutions to do the studies? I'm just going to focus on my YouTube channel, bring value to the people at home. And then that has continued my course today. And I think that failure taught me that, talking about myself, I'm probably more effective making videos and having an engaged audience by both entertaining and educating them through that than running studies, because there's so many hurdles to overcome in studies that I'm not as passionate about randomized controlled trials as probably some other people are. B, there's probably people that have much better skill sets for that than I do, because various reasons. And I'm a clinician that usually spends time with patients rather than designing studies and implementing data. I'm sure I could learn it with time, but the idea of writing a scientific paper that gets read by 15 people as opposed to putting out a video that gets tens of thousands of views frustrates me. It's no end. Obviously, if you have a great study and it's peer reviewed and is cited a lot and people get a lot of value, that is a great thing. But the unfortunate truth is that most of the scientific papers never get read. They never get used to create further studies. And if you want to get really technical about it, I think that the A/B testing that you can do with videos to see what's more effective information is much faster than writing a scientific paper and getting peer reviewed and seeing what resonates in the academic. And that's a whole other, I could rant about this obviously for hours, but it's like, there's different paths you can take with professionalism. You can focus more on the academic and research community, or you can focus more on public interface. And I think I'm more effective on public interface. So that kind of solidified my direction in life to go with more of a public interface. And hopefully, actually, I really would like Techforpsych to get to a level at which I have enough resources to fund studies and hire research scientists to do those studies by using the resources that come from being a public-facing entity. But until I reach that point, I think that I'm going to have a somewhat limited role in doing that type of academic research. I get offered partnerships, and I think I'm going to be doing more of that as being a partner on papers, just offering my insights and being more of a consultant. But as far as running the studies myself and then writing the papers by myself, I think that my time is better used exploring these concepts in video format.
Hey, please keep up the work that you're doing. I believe it's making a massive impact, obviously, from the amount of views and the amount of engagement you get. That's a clear indicator that the value is there. I absolutely agree with you in terms of your reach is much wider currently in this space. And as you develop over time, I'm positive that you will build the resources for funding future research papers and stuff like that. It's only a matter of time. And I'm excited for your work, your upcoming work as well.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that.
And as we're heading towards the tail end of our podcast, there's a couple of questions I always ask every guest. And to begin with, are you excited about any upcoming projects or technology releases in the end of this year or 2023?
Yeah, there's so much going on. I'm really curious almost with every one of the companies that I'm working with, what their next iteration is going to be. I'm really going to focus on more product reviews coming up here for the fall. I want to give more practical advice is what I'm aiming for. More protocols, more personal experiences with the devices, and just things that people can use to improve their patterns and their training regimens. That's what I'm most excited about for now, but I could go off in a million different directions about the different research that's going on. Mary Lou Jepsen just presented with CNN about her ultrasound near infrared combination device that is detecting types of stroke and stroke victims in the ambulance before they even get to the hospital.
Wow.
And looking at using that to improve the medical care, but also using it for structural imaging, because they've been able to use rat models to show that a combination of ultrasound pings with the near infrared light will actually show structural, you can see the brain using a technology that can be embedded in a wearable. You're not having that abstract data of looking at a line graph of here are your EEG patterns, or here's the blood flow increase. Here's your brain. You've got an image of it. You're at home. You can see it. Here's what it's doing. I get really excited about that. And I know Colonel is taking a look at a possible wearable scenario as well. I don't think that they've made that public at all, but I know it's being explored. And then, of course, I have much love for Mendy right now. I think that they're doing incredible things with tracking frontal lobe blood flow for attention. I actually just had a Forbes article come out yesterday talking about the good work that they've been doing, and they've got a lot of great upgrades coming in the near future as well. And I think I'll just stop at that because there's too much going on, and I want to talk for another 30 minutes about everything that I'm excited about for the next 6 months.
No, those are great points. Dr. Cody, do you have any particular morning or evening routines?
I do. Right now, I usually get up at 5 a.m. I immediately drink some water because I live in Las Vegas and I'm usually pretty dehydrated in the morning. And then I come into the office here and I do my Mendy neurofeedback is what I've been doing for the last 2 months. So I'm really focusing on that, and I'll change that up as I move forward because I give each device a time in my morning routine. I'm going to be rotating them through so I get more and more data on myself and more practical benefits for my audience. But wake up, drink water, do my neurofeedback session, usually do a meditation session after that just to enhance my cognitive experience after the brainwave training, then go to the gym or go for a run outside and then come back and really get into the work day. So that's been my morning routine for the last year.
Wow, that's a very solid morning routine. Let me get that. It's skipping the water part. You've got the
wake up,
Mendy
neurofeedback training,
and followed by meditation, and then you've got the gym and then a run. It's like a back-to-back for both.
Oh, no, I usually either go lift weights or go for the outside run. I don't do both of those on the same day. I change them up. I try to run about 3 days a week these days. In Las Vegas, it heats up so quick that I have to get out there really early, which is, I like getting up early anyways, but it's another reason to get up at 4:30 instead of 5, just to beat the sun. And then I do shower, but I tend to do that after I get back from the gym. Sometimes because that morning routine takes a couple hours, sometimes I'm like, I really need to actually get some work done. So I might work for a couple hours and then take a break and then shower and then come back to the workday, just depending on if I've got interviews that day or if I'm doing video editing or if I'm seeing patients. I do still see psychiatry patients for about 8 hours a week these days on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So I still keep up that practice on the side as well. So every day is different. That's actually one of the fun, cool things about being on YouTube and having an online business is that it's very variable and lots of stimulus for my brain to keep engaged and keep bringing everybody as much value as I can.
That's great. Do you have a favorite book you'd recommend?
Oh man, I'd say the one book that was very pertinent to my life within the last year that I just talked about on the video that I'll be releasing this week is Letting Go by David Hawkins. Talks about how to visit trauma and allow your emotions to come up and release, like a release valve, because that's something that I definitely struggled with over the past year. And that book helped me a lot. There's a lot of, if you suppress trauma energy, that will definitely manifest itself in anxiety and difficulties for you later. So for anybody that's going through a tough time, I would highly recommend David Hawkins' Letting Go book. Really helpful.
Thank you for the recommendation. Are there any new beliefs or behaviors that have had a positive impact in your life in the recent years?
Yeah, on that same thread, I myself had never experienced a level of needing to grieve for the passing of my friend that really built up a lot of anxious energy in me, and how revisiting that through therapy or different meditative techniques like are discussed in the Letting Go book actually really was hard to go through, but also so educational in what happens to the autonomic nervous system under stress and what to do in those situations and how to intervene so that people get peace in their lives. And how I talk about the default mode network quite a bit on my YouTube channel, self-referential thought. When you're worrying, you can't get out of your head and beating yourself up with all these expectations that we set for ourselves. I learned a lot about the default mode network this year. Again, if you're interested in that story, I'll be putting out that video this weekend. A shameless plug for that, but I think that people will be pretty interested in it. And I got to show a side of me that I haven't been able to show on YouTube before, that's a lot more vulnerable and personal and in a storytelling format. That this last year and a half has actually been pretty transformational for me personally, as well as I'm sure a lot of people going through the pandemic and all the difficult situations we've been presented with over the last couple of years. So we'll see how it goes.
Yes, absolutely. We'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that video. And I think it's a lot of people will be able to benefit from your experience and your practice that you're sharing. If you could only send one single line of SMS text to yourself 5 years ago, what would it be? Keep going.
It's a marathon. This stuff is such a marathon, and there's ups and downs, and there's frustration in trying to figure out what works best, what has the most impact. And if you are in a field as new as brain computer interface, I think that you have to develop a resilience. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but there's a lot of skepticism, which is healthy. I think that people should be skeptical about new technologies. And I think that's just the most important thing. And I would still tell myself, keep going, because I don't see myself anywhere near where I want to be in the near future or the long-term future. But again, life is a journey. So enjoy each stage. The critics, I love you. Say what you want on YouTube. I'm still going to keep making my videos. I had one recent comment where the lady said I had a high nasal voice and I had cartoon hair. I was like, what? Cartoon hair? Not to change my whole haircut. So keep going, because I think that if you're doing something of impact, there's going to be people that are critical or even frankly just outright negative about what you're trying to do. And the important part is to keep learning, keep creating, and believe in what you're doing. Because I think that this technology could help a lot of people, and it's just going to take time and development.
Yes, keep going, Dr. Cody. Your fans love you, so please continue.
Thanks, Kevin.
And finally, how could people reach out or learn more about you, Dr. Cody?
Yeah, I think one of the best ways actually to find me and interact with me one-on-one these days is Instagram. I've really beefed up my Instagram presence lately, and I do try to keep up with direct messages on Instagram. But please, of course, comments on the YouTube videos, because that really helps with the videos of the search algorithm favors videos that have been commented on, and I've been answering all those comments as well. But if you want to have more of a one-on-one conversation with me, reach out to me on Instagram. I can't guarantee a response just because there are a lot of people that are reaching out to me, and it's a full-time job just to be able to respond to comments and questions. But I really am doing my best to be more available for my audience. Check out my Instagram, reach out to me, and hopefully I'll be able to get back to you and have at least a little bit of a conversation about the challenges that you're having with the neurotechnology and any tips that I might have to improve your experience. And I learned from those interactions as well. So don't feel like you're bothering me, because it's a really good data and information for me to learn more about my audience and be a more effective communicator and educator in my career.
Thank you, Dr. Cody Rall, for responding to this request to come onto the podcast. It does mean a lot to me. As I've mentioned, I have been a big fan of yours over the past few years, and you're my hero in this space. Thank you for connecting. I've learned so much, and I cannot wait to continue and follow your journey and what else you intend to release. Thank you, Dr. Cody Rall.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been really fun and great questions. So I had a really fun time, Kevin.
For sure.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. All the links to the show notes will be available at kevinleesocial.com, spelled KEVINLY. Conversely, if you have any interviews that you'd love to recommend, please send it over to kevinleesocial@gmail.com. I'd love to connect. Thank you. Until the next episode.